Excellent. It does look like we are live on our two channels, both on Facebook and YouTube. So I'll wait a minute and make sure that I actually can see it on my end. Okay, so I will go ahead and get us kicked off. I see a couple folks that are hopping on and off and kind of bouncing back and forth. So I will make sure to try and be as brief as possible at the start so you can optimize your time with our counselor that's with us this morning. But I am Juliette Abdel, your Westminster Chamber of Commerce President and CEO, and I want to welcome you onto our broadcast that we've been having for well over 2 years now. You can find a lot of those videos in the video section here on our Facebook page or even our YouTube channel, Westminster Chamber of Commerce. So if you're bored, if you want to get caught up, if you are looking for creative ideas or just updates on not only resources in our community, but information from experts, please feel free to rewatch, replay any of those. And we always emphasize that you can give us that hashtag replay so we know that you tuned into something and you found that piece of content very engaging, and we can bring that type of information back to you into the future. Now, if you are a first-time viewer, then I do want to welcome you onto our broadcast and ask that you not only hit the like button on this page, but that you hit the notification to get alerted. So the follow icon here on our Facebook, the subscribe button on our YouTube channel, both of those are great ways to buzz you when we go live or when we post content, so you can drop what you're doing and tune in with us and engage in real time. So those are the great ways to do that. Of course, we are on all social media platforms. If you've not already known about this or found us on there, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Westy Chamber. We're also on LinkedIn, Westminster Chamber of Commerce, and our website for you is westminsterchamber.biz. If you've never been to it, you are in for a treat. There's a lot of resources, a lot of linked pages, and just some information that would benefit you, not only as a business owner, but as a resident here in our community, visitor, or tourist to our area. So I see a couple of you already on here before with us, and you're on here again now. Those returning viewers, we want to welcome you back. You all know the drill, and I'll quickly remind those of you that have not known this before, you can engage with us on this video in a couple of ways. One is by reacting to this video so we can see your reaction. We much prefer those lighthearted ones, the smiley faces or hearts or even a thumbs up. You can give us an angry one, but you know, it's Monday and we want to start off on a great note. The second way that you can engage with us is through the comment button on this video. So beside the screen, if you're watching on your desktop, if you're watching on your phone, it's to the bottom of this video. You can actually type in comments, you can type in questions. They can be off the cuff things. It doesn't have to be something about the information that we're sharing with you. If it's something that you really want us to touch on, that is the way that we'll do that. So a great example of this, or we already have a few people that have started to do so. We've got Councilor Seymour with us this morning, giving us a nice good morning message. I do hope that you are staying bundled up if you're outside on the corner today. It's getting a little chilly out there. We've got one of our board members, Dave Carpenter, as well, giving a good morning message to the counselor and myself. Emilio is also tuned in with us with a nice good morning remark. We enjoy your presence with us and your involvement as a business professional here in our community, Emilio. And then, of course, Parker Brown is tuned in to us on this Monday morning. So thank you all for hopping on. and starting to engage with us on this broadcast, please feel free to also hit the share button on this video so others in your network can see that we're live and that we are getting finally started. So at this point, I am just very excited to have Councilor Ezeadi on here with me. Thank you so much for finding the time to hop on and give some updates and answer some questions.
No, thank you for having me. And Julia, I must say, you're one of the best hosts.
Oh,
just 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 so professional, and it's kind of like watching CBS News in the morning.
oh my goodness, thank you so much. Oh, I already loved you. Now I love you even more. So thank you for that compliment. But you
I
have
I
stayed.
just drop compliments, and that's all.
Right. I
That's my
always
big strategy.
Yeah, I always say compliments are like water. We constantly need them. But Counselor Ezeadi, you've been busy. And when I really thank all of our counselors for always finding the time, because you guys, your schedule is so back to back, from your personal lives with your family, your kiddos that you have, to work and running that, whether you're a business owner or another professional in the community, to then the council duties that you have and the extracurriculars that come with that. So last week looks a lot like a full schedule from the council radar, and even policy, and just this huge briefing that you were filled in on. Let's tell people what that looked like, what your world looked like over this last week.
Yeah, so last week was another week where I abandoned my family. where, where I haven't had a lot of time with my wife and my daughter. But I told them one more week. So we have a vacation coming up in a couple of weeks, my first one
Okay.
in 13 months.
Oh my
Um,
gosh,
but
long overdue.
yeah, but last week I attended the National League of Cities Congressional City Conference. That's an annual conference. It's about 2,000 city elected officials that were there from all over the country. And it's just a place where we can all convene, we learn, we meet federal officials. So it's hosted, and it's guest speakers from the federal government, from state governments, from city governments. Um, and all the city councilors and mayors, we all just talk about, we share best practices. And it's an opportunity for us to advocate on behalf of our cities to NLC, who's a big they lobby for policies that help us all to the government.
Yeah.
And one of the big examples of that was the ARPA funding from last year and the bipartisan infrastructure bill. They were big proponents of that and pushed that and helped to push that through. So this last week was, so the conference was from the 14th to the 16th,
Mhm.
and I attended a lot of different events that I think are really relevant to Westminster, a ton of them. So there are 10 key ones. I just wrote a report, by the way, and I can share that with you, Julia, if you want to share that to
Yeah.
people, um, from my learnings of that conference. But some of the relevant ones, particularly for the business community, I think that are important. Um, there was one event called the Community and Economic Development Federal Advocacy Committee meeting. That's the very long name. But in that one, we shared that we learned a lot about the various funding opportunities. So there's grant funding opportunities, there are loans, there are a lot of initiatives happening
Mhm.
nationwide, that are pushed down to states, then pushed down to cities like
Yeah.
us, that I think are beneficial. There was a transportation infrastructure meeting. There was a water infrastructure meeting where I learned about funding for water projects, which is very relevant to
Yeah.
our situation right now. I had one-on-one meetings with Congressman Perlmutter and Bennett and Hickenlooper. So they are pushing on behalf of Colorado and up the cities as well. And there are so many big takeaways, but I don't want to just rant on it. You know, let me know if you want specifics.
Yeah, no, I think this is all great information. One, I'm glad that you're finally going to find that time to decompress and get some vacation time in. So crucial. But then I also love that you started highlighting kind of the big picture items that you were involved with at the federal level. So those of you that are tuned in with us are starting to hop on. I've captured a lot of the larger headers inside of the comment section. I don't want to lose sight that we also have Mayor Pro Tem Demont on here giving a quick good morning message our way. Um, But Councilor Ezeadi, you touched on some pretty important topics, especially, it was red flags. I'm so glad that you mentioned that there's economic development, the community development piece that's crucial. And then you even went in and attended those meetings that apply directly to our community with the conversations around water that we're having here and some of those infrastructure needs. So if we can look down or do a little bit of a deeper dive into maybe some of that content that you gained, whether it's initiatives or opportunities, were there any that stood out that you came back and you're like, okay, I definitely want to see if this is being implemented or something that we can look at as a community?
Yeah, definitely. And one of the big learnings from the economic meetings, that I think may be relevant to the watchers of this call, uh, the biggest, it seemed that across, so the consensus across many cities and the speakers was that workforce readiness is not a given. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, a lot of cities and communities are going through trying to figure out how to get their workforce ready to build and maintain that infrastructure, right? So there's a lot of funding for infrastructure, but there isn't a lot of workforce, and
Mm-hmm.
cities are underinvesting um, in workforce programs. So they're using a lot of ARPA funding
Mm.
to set up their workforce programs and to supplement various organizations within, and their chambers of commerce
Yeah.
too are helping out as well. So there there's so many things we can talk about, Julie.
Oh
that,
my
I,
gosh, yes,
I'd love to just meet with you and just see what's happening, what you guys are
of
doing and
course.
what we could be doing. But cities they are investing to set up workforce programs. So items critical to themselves locally, programs such as like in Phoenix, Arizona, they invested $28 million directly to households and residences, um, because a lot of these workers are families, right? They have families and so forth, and they have struggled, they have lost their jobs. So there's direct payments given to them, but then some cities are giving money to their chamber of commerce. So
Yeah.
Lakeland, Florida, gave $1 million to the chamber of commerce. Plug, plug, plug.
Right.
um, and, and then their chamber of commerce provided assistance to BIPOC, to women, to veteran-owned businesses,
I
small
love that.
businesses. So
Yeah.
rather than the city allocating dollars on by their
Yeah.
own counselors, they are saying, no, chamber of commerce, you have a closer connection
Yeah.
and relationship with businesses. You know who needs it the most.
Sure.
um, we'll give you money and you can spread that.
Yeah.
So there's lots of business investment, which I thought was refreshing to hear about.
Yes.
um, there are a lot of programs related to training and education. So getting workforce ready, a
Mm-hmm.
big part of that is training them and having those training programs and inviting neighboring communities
Mm-hmm.
to participate. And
Yeah.
by the way, the biggest learning that I think from the whole conference was for all of our issues. So water infrastructure, whether it's homelessness, whether it's housing, um, all of it, the best and most effective way of solutioning, not just from a grant application standpoint, to get approved, but also just from a solutioning standpoint. The best communities, what they're doing is they're working with their neighbors.
Yes.
They don't have a Westminster plan. They have
Mm-hmm.
a Westminster, Arvada, Golden,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Lakewood, Broomfield
Yeah.
plan. Because when you have multiple cities working together, that gives you leverage. That gives you leverage on the application. So they are
Mm-hmm.
applying together. So these cities
Yes.
so they apply to grants together,
Mm-hmm.
and then what they do is they get their
Then they get
congressmen, their
local.
senators, right?
Yeah.
So they get their chamber of commerce. All the local organizations
Yeah.
sign on to these letters of support.
Yeah.
So not only do they have leverage on the applications from working together, they also have local organizations and
Sure.
local officials sign on to a letter of support,
Yes.
right? And that letter of support pushes the state to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Pushes the federal government to say yes, um, because they see that there's a need there, and it's a much better and much more efficient allocation of
Yeah.
resources when you give it to that sort of conglomerate versus a
Sure.
single city who's asking for one project, you know?
Absolutely. Well, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's the issue that's here in our community isn't just here in our community. I mean, it's faced in our region, it's faced across the state. And so it does make sense to collaborate on those things. And then where we can all get that voice together to have a piece of that puzzle and then kind of come back and localize it afterward, that makes sense. And totally, you're speaking music to my ears. This is like this, I love the synergy that's there when you can show that here's a public-private partnership and here's it working together solidly, that we're all working to better this one particular area that need that's there. I think that's felt by the entire community at large. AJ, I see you on here, and Terry, thank you both for hopping on to the broadcast with us. We have Councilor Ezeadi, who was just giving a quick update for us. He's learned a lot over this last week while he was out in DC at the federal level, and is sharing with us kind of the higher level items. I really peppered him with a couple of questions, and so if you have any thoughts and were curious, let us know. I also see one of our past board chairmen, Brian Head, giving a good morning message. Thank you for tuning in with us. So Councilor Ezeadi, you know, I feel like I could keep asking you questions about this because I know that you are a learner like I am. And so you probably were just absorbing it all. And you're like, I am back here and I want to get this all done. But we're so limited on our time. And so we are going to put a pin into this conversation. You and I will sidebar after this, and then we can discuss kind of how to make this work. Even more than what we are already doing here in our community and make it even better. Mayor Pro Tem DeMont did have a quick comment about how working on some regional issues that are going on, like homelessness and transportation, powerful when we work together where we can within the rules of our states and municipalities. So great examples of some existing partnerships that are there, and great feedback from Councilor Ezeadi on some future things that we can be looking at, or things that are out there that we may be not even touching, like some of those examples with other communities and their partnerships with chambers. So love those comments that we have coming in. Keep them going. Councilor Ezeadi, you guys are not free this evening either. I believe that you always have something, but you probably have something on your radar in terms of a meeting with other councilors and with the city. So are there any items you want to highlight from that lens for us?
Well, homelessness is a big issue right now, and we're looking to learn more about the homelessness issue. Also, by the way, not to go back to the first topic, but there was a lot of talk on homelessness. It's hitting every city at
Yeah.
huge levels. We will see an increase in the summer and the fall. That's sort of because homelessness is a lagging indicator. You know, it's um, it's typically seen to increase after 6 to 9 months after, or 9 to 12 months after a recession is when you start seeing an increase. We've seen an increase from our COVID recession almost, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
Already in Westminster, it's everywhere. It's growing. It's pervasive. Um, One of the big learnings there was that, and what I'm hoping to learn more tonight and going forward about homelessness in Westminster, is that it's most of these local governments, if not all that spoke last week, um, they're not taking passive roles. They're taking active ones.
Mhm.
They are directing resources to assist people to move out of the encampments and into safe, quality, and affordable housing. That's been a big key learning there. That there are many things a city can do um, alone and in collaboration with neighbors, right? Because again, when you work together with neighbors, that's the key. And so I predict, as people are in many cities, that there's going to be it's going to get even worse, and it's sad, right?
Yeah.
A compassionate take on it is the answer. So a holistic solution where we are not just banning and sweeping encampments. That doesn't solve the issues. That doesn't solve the issue. And cities have tried that, and it has failed. What has worked though are long-term holistic solutions. You
Mhm.
know, closing the faucet of how do you get people out from becoming homeless, right? How
Yes.
do you make homelessness temporary? How do you really address their issues when they need it? Because too often cities are doing are making or these collaborations are putting in place solutions, or offering solutions to to the unhoused when they don't want it, right? It's too
Mhm.
soon, and it's something that they don't need at that moment. So the way to do it is to make sure that that upstream stabilization occurs via a wide variety of programs from a holistic standpoint, from sheltering to engagement care, right, to substance abuse care and mental health. All of those things are, and housing. You know, housing is the biggest driver right now. The lack of affordable housing. I think we're 7 million units, or six or 7 million units short nationwide, right, on housing. And when you have that shortage, of course, and then you have a pandemic on top of that, right? And then you have an affordability crisis on top of that, where everything's unaffordable. Of course, people are going to go homeless, and of course, they won't have a choice but to choose some of these places where we might not like to see it, right? But the answer is not just kicking them out. The answer has to be, all right, what can we do with our neighbors to formulate a holistic solution?
Yeah, and I love that. I love that mindset of it's not necessarily doing a temporary fix. Like, let's figure out what that core problem is and try and address it right there, so that it's not this continual cycle that is growing, and it's captured such a group that needs that support and help. And I know that there was a lot of conversation by council, especially over the last several weeks, around homelessness, and what were some efforts that were already being done. How are we responding to those calls? Who's housing them? Are there opportunities for organizations to house them that meet code and enforcement? So there is a lot of talk around this for those of you that are tuned in and know that this is something of interest to our counselors, on how do we do this in the best way, support those members of the community that most need that support, but do it in a way that's also long-term, effective, and digestible by those people that we're trying to help. Because it's hard. I always give that analogy whenever you really want to help someone who doesn't want to be helped. It won't line up right. And so what is the best way that you can do that in the time that they want it? AJ, thank you for the quick remark. Hello to you, and thank you for tuning in with us. Dave Carpenter looks like he may have a quick question for us / comment. So I'm pulling it up onto our screen. I think it's right around the homelessness that we just discussed. And his question is, what do we do about those homelessness who don't want to help? There isn't a simple solution to this. So
Just to quickly answer that, we don't. There is no answer to it, right? But to quickly respond to that, there are. That was a hot topic during the conference. A lot of cities were asking that question, and the to summarize the answer, it's basically that we have to create the circumstances where the choice is theirs, right? When you approach people too early with something that they might not want, some people don't want housing, right? I mean, we assume that they want to be housed, but some people don't want housing in that moment. Some they may want food, right? Or they may want to not take the next hit of whatever drug, or the list is endless. The way to do it, or the consensus of this issue was that we local governments should create the circumstances where the choice is theirs, create a system that's designed to serve with time, patience, and relationship building, right? When you build that relationship with them over time, that's how to get to them accepting what we know they need for their survival, right? Housing and food and so forth. But that takes relationship building, and that's not easy work. There's no quick solution to that. Most will accept the housing. Some may not. Some may not accept the food, but they may accept housing. The point is, we need to create the circumstances so that they can make the choice on their own.
Thank you for that quick answer. And it's a question that continues to be a conundrum. And I think Dave was typing that out as we were just sharing about how, how do you help those that don't need help? And thank you for providing some insight on that, Councilor Ezeadi. So big topic for us to deal with, but I'm glad to see some progress being made and some conversation being had, so that it isn't continuing to fall by the wayside. So you have some ways that people can also get updated on things that you have going on. What are a couple of those?
Yeah, so today and every Monday before council meetings, I have in-office council hours. So I started this a couple months ago. It's been going really well. I have a few residents every Monday that come in and talk to me about whatever they want. So whether you're mad at me or happy, or you have a topic, or you want to talk about an issue in your local area that I can help advocate for you or give or connect you to resources,
Yeah.
you can talk to me about whatever. It's every Monday, 4:30. That's at City Hall. You just walk in, you ask the front desk to meet with me, and they'll show you to the meeting room, and we'll chat. It's very low key. It's very informal. I'm happy to chat with anyone. So that's one way. A second way, at any time. So I meet with residents throughout the week. You can connect with me. You can text me. So my phone number, I'll give you that if you want it. 720-447-5606. Text me anytime. Text is better because I'm always in meetings and or doing something, but I'm always responding to text. So it's faster if you want to reach me. You can text me about an issue you have. I'll see what I could do about it. Or you can text me to meet with me. We can meet at Starbucks or wherever you want. That's another way. A third way, I don't know how much time you have, Juliet.
Right, I know a
uh,
communication
a third,
strategy right here.
a third way is I have a newsletter. So I started a email newsletter. It kicked off last month, the first one, and basically in that newsletter I talk about city council. So I give my voting record. So we have a voting site now. You have links to that. I'll tell you what I voted on, what I didn't vote on, why I didn't vote on it. And this is part of what I call that radical transparency that we talked about last time, right, Juliet? I think radical transparency and communication is the cure to uniting and education, right? Is the cure to uniting the city and figuring out how to get through our big issues that we have right now. How do we get through that together? It takes transparency. So this email newsletter will cover city council. It'll cover my thoughts on a specific topic. Last time I spoke about the student loan crisis, which is
Okay.
affecting a lot of our youth in Westminster. So I wanted to make sure that they know that
Yes.
I feel that pain. Civics 101. So there's a section called Civics 101 where I'm literally educating on a specific topic. Last month I talked about water infrastructure, part one, and it was just what is water. What is water. There's a lot of water debate and talks, and sometimes there's misinformation, sometimes there's good information, but there's too much information, right? Sometimes people just need a consolidated, concise way of learning about a topic, um, that can help educate them, and especially as council is going through our analysis to figure out what to do with Semper.
Mhm.
It's I figured let's diving deep into water infrastructure right now is a good time. Next month would be part two, and that's when I'm going to dive into Westminster specifically, how Semper works, how Northwest works, what our source water comes from, and so forth. And I'm also going to dive into oil. So for my Civics 101, how oil works, how the gas prices work, and what does government have to do with that? The answer is nothing, by the way. But what does government have to do with oil and gas prices? Because that's an issue right now too with our residents.
Mhm.
Prices are going up on everything.
Right.
Where does it all come from? How does it all work? So stuff like that. I highlight a small business every time. Last
Okay.
month I interviewed Tattered Cover Bookstore,
Okay. Yes.
the CEO, Kwame Spearman. And this month, just 2 days ago, I interviewed three businesses. So on 73rd Avenue, my favorite coffee shop, Creative Corner,
Yeah.
uh, Idlebits Art Gallery, and Youth and Railroad,
Yeah.
Youth and Model Railroading. I interviewed the owners there and talked about their businesses and why everyone in Westminster should be visiting their businesses because they should be. And so it's on video. It's on my social media. It will be posted soon. That video interview, and in my newsletter, I'll talk about those businesses as well. Um, I also highlight a different resident, and tell their story because I think it's important for residents to have space to tell their own story. Why do they live in Westminster? What's their biggest issue that they face in their life, and how do they overcome it? Stuff like that, because many of us need that camaraderie, need to know that others are suffering as we all are. We're all depressed, right? Some of us admit it, some of us don't. How are they overcoming those challenges? And that should help to inspire other residents when they read their story. So I encourage everyone. So sorry to rant there, but I encourage everyone to sign up for
Yeah.
the newsletter. The next one comes out first week of April.
Absolutely. And they can do that in a couple ways. One is to text you, and that's to text 66866. You text OB to that number. Or if you do not prefer text and would rather go to a link, there is a link in the comment section for you to follow. And that is another way that you can sign up for that newsletter that OB or Councilor Ezeadi was just referencing. And that kind of details a number of things, not just what's being discussed at the dais, but things of interest that he feels to him and to our constituency and our community. So feel free to check out that newsletter and continue to engage with our counselors. So we also referenced that there are council hours for Councilor Ezeadi. So at 4:30 at City Hall, if you're interested prior to those city council meetings, you can find him there. Dave wanted to give you a quick thank you for that comment earlier on his question that he had in regard to the homelessness. And then, of course, we'll type into the chat the City Council link to the City of Westminster page for those of you that are interested in finding the agenda, information about what's coming up, and details on our counselors. Now, believe it or not, Councilor Ezeadi, it always goes by so fast when I have you on here, and we are a little over a 30-minute mark. So I do need to start winding down things. If there's anything else that I didn't pepper you with that you wanted to throw out there.
No, just thanking everyone, thanking the business community. I'm excited for the next few months because I'm excited to see what council can do to help the business community. I think as spring comes along and as the weather gets warmer, we need to promote businesses more. And Juliet, this is something you and I have talked about a lot. And I would love to know if you guys have ideas, text me, reach out to me, come to my council hours, let me know how the city can help. You know, the city is doing a lot right now. We've changed our communication plan where we're reaching out a lot more than we have before. But I know it's not enough. So please let me know what you can do, what you think we can do. Um, we're trying different ways. We're going to have coffee chats. I'm interviewing businesses. If you are a business, by the way, and you would like me to interview you and promote you in my newsletter and just talk about you in my social, I'm always willing to do that. And Juliet, I'd love to, as you know, collabo on something, on the outreach for a business because I think promotion will be key now heading into spring.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I know there's a lot of opportunity that's there and a lot of eagerness on your part. So very excited to see that continue on and coalesce together with our thoughts as well. So for those of you that are tuned in and we are no longer live, please continue to engage with us. Give us that hashtag replay. You can still ask a question or make a comment. We'll be able to see that and pull it over for a counselor to either address at another broadcast or even sooner by commenting back to you via the chat. If for some reason you had a question you didn't want to type into the comments, but you wanted to DM our page, that's always an option to you. And of course, that would be in confidence, and we wouldn't necessarily release out who has asked that, but we would ask that question for you so that you feel a little bit of that privacy as well. If you haven't already done so, hit the share button on this video so others can see that we were live and can catch it at a later point in time and maybe watch this in the evening or as they're cozying up in the warmth away from the snow that's outside. So that leads me to the next comment. If it gets snowy out there and you can stay at home and off the roads, that always helps for us to clear the roads a little bit clearer, like the City of Westminster has continued to do, and continue to engage with us on our broadcast. We'll be back on here live, of course, on Wednesday and then Friday once again. And in between, we've got some programs and events and continual outreach, and things are getting back to the level of high frequency that we've had pre-COVID. So we are here to continue to support our community, continue to work with our awesome elected officials like Councilor Ezeadi, and I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in this morning, and of course to thank our counselor for spending a good portion with us, giving us these timely updates.
Thank you so much.